Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens.
We cherish that. We love that particular piece of it because
teach people like, hey, it's okay, change.
New ways to view age-old challenges. Change your thoughts, change your life. Step into the bigness of you.
Welcome to Speak, the Universe Listens. And today's topic is changing the story that you tell yourself. And I have Stephen with me and Rodney.
Hey.
Welcome, guys. And welcome everyone to this topic of changing the story that you tell yourselves. And I actually just want to jump right in, and because one of the most important questions that I think that we can ask ourselves and have an answer for is the question, who am I? So, Rodney, why would you think that's one of the most important questions?
Because who you are is all about what you tell yourself, the story you tell yourself, how you feel about yourself. That's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like Rodney said. I mean, it's pretty much what you tell yourself. You know? For me, I remember at one time in my life, I was real young, but at the same token, finding my way. And I was always told, growing up, because I wasn't the best student in school, I wasn't the best kid, and that's the story I was telling myself because that's what I was hearing, because what the environment that I was in. And I got to a point as to where I fell into that, and I was like, you know what? You're right. And everybody that was telling me these things, I was proving them right, because my thought process was like, you know what, you're right. And after a while, I went to trade school and went to college, and I started doing all these amazing things that I never thought I could do. But my whole story to myself changed mentally, and I was like, you know, I could have done this all along, you know, but I had to tell myself that, and I had to believe it for myself, and it felt good.
Because it's like, who am I? If you think about that question, who am I, and how you answer that question, every single decision that you make is based on how you answer that question. And so as Stephen was saying, when he believed that the answer was, I'm not a good student, you know, whatever the other stuff was, then you were actually living into that. But then when you started changing how you saw yourself, then you started living into something different.
You'll be surprised the way people talk about themselves. It's like, man, you feel that way about yourself? And then they get to believe in these things, you know. So it's like, if you want to feel different and want to be a different person, then start changing who you tell yourself you are, how you talk about yourself every day.
Yeah.
How you think about yourself every day, how you feel about yourself. Start changing those things.
Yeah. That's fun. What you just say reminded me of this. I went to some conference, a Dream Builders conference, and we had to do this exercise where we had to write down, like, what are we telling ourselves? What's the record that's playing in our minds over and over again about ourselves? And so we wrote it down, and then we had to give it to two people. And so then those two people will stand in your ear and just say those things to you.
Wow.
All right, I like that.
Yeah, and it was an amazing experience, but I remember the person that I went with, the stuff that she wrote down and that I then had to say to her, like I wanted to fight me for, you know what I'm saying? Like it was hard for me to say those words to her, you know, and I'm just like, you know, and she's just one person, but like just all the people in there, you could see people just, they were just streaming, just crying and crying or whatever, like to hear this stuff out loud and realizing this is how I'm talking to myself.
To your own self.
Yeah.
Because if anything, you your biggest fan. You know what I mean? You the person supposed to motivate yourself, think highly of yourself, but then again, I can understand as to why a lot of people think of themselves in certain ways because of the story that they've been living their whole life.
It's like you know, it goes back to you create your reality.
Yeah.
Like, I got a friend who always say, I'm not good with time, you know. Well, guess what? He always late to everything. Because he constantly say, I'm not good with time.
Right.
Or I'm not good with prioritizing time, prioritizing things. He always late. Because he's telling himself that same story over again.
And that kind of reminded me too of another conference I went to. I went to a Tony Robbins conference, and he had someone. He just asked the question: is there anybody in the audience who cannot catch? Like no matter what, you cannot catch.
Yeah.
And so people raised their hands. So he chose somebody, and so he threw the ball to her. Ball went every which way, so she would go run, go get the ball, give it back. He threw it again, it went some other way, and he's like, you're right, you really can't catch, like, you know. And so then he was like, oh, but can you do me a favor? I'm gonna throw the ball to you, and can you tell me, it's an X marked on the ball. Can you tell me if the X is pointing up when you catch it, or is it pointing down, or is it pointing left or right, or whatever? So he threw her the ball, and so she caught it, and she was like, the X is pointing this way. So then he threw the ball again, she caught it, and she's like, the X is pointing this way. So, you know, by now, the audience, we all laughing, right? And she looked like, what they laughing at, you know? Then she's like, the X is going up, and he's like, okay, but do you realize you just caught that ball 3 times in a row? And she's like, I promise you, I can't catch. Whatever. But he was just like, the point he was kind of making was, you know, wherever your attention is, what your focus is, you know, and that basically she was focused on the ball, therefore she was able to catch it. But it just totally shot her theory that she couldn't catch. She just wasn't looking in the right direction.
Right. I love that story.
Yeah, when you tell that story, it made me think sometimes. But yeah, if anything, just watching what you tell yourself. If especially when you're trying to level up, I learned from myself that you just can't sit back and speak down on yourself, and especially if you know that you want to level yourself up, because it's like, well, how you want to level up if you don't believe that you can level up? And I was in Maryland, and I was living out there in Maryland, and that's the time as to where I really was diving in, doing some personal work on myself, and I was just reading a lot, and I changed my whole narrative as far as people pleasing. That was something big, you know. I was just like, I felt like I had to save everybody. And me and you talked about this one time, and it was something as to where it was like, if I didn't do for somebody, then I felt like the bad guy, or I felt like, you know, I wasn't doing my part. And then I realized, I said, well, let me change that narrative and focus on Steve. Focus on what I need to do, what makes me feel good for myself. And that just changed everything.
A lot of times I feel like the story we tell ourselves really was from when you were younger, like the environment you were in, you know, thoughts passed down from your family or church or whoever. Like a lot of that stuff is passed down to us, how we feel about ourselves, and sometimes we don't even realize that a certain way you do things is from something you've seen or someone told you when you was a kid.
Right.
So it's like if we can kind of erase that and start fresh and say, who do I want to be? How do I want to feel about myself? And start from there
Right.
and erase all that
Yeah.
all of that past.
Exactly, and you can just live into whatever it is. So if you, like, whatever you want to be, that dream is in you for a reason.
Right.
Like, you want that for a reason. And a lot of times, don't get me wrong, we do get so influenced by the outside world. We don't know what we want. We think we want what people tell us that we
Yeah.
want. But typically, if you have a particular dream of how you want to be in the world, that dream is for you. You had a dream for a reason. And so you can just start living into that. So what is that person like? What does that person think about? What does that person, how does that person feel? When they get up in the morning, what do they do? And you can just start living into that, like changing your identity from what it currently is to what you would like it to be. And just start claiming it. And in theory, that sounds great. I don't know about in practice, I have no idea. For me, I always felt like, just unworthy of anything. Like I didn't feel worthy of anything at all. And what changed it for me was recognizing that I am connected to the source of all that exists and that my life is purposeful no matter how I show up. And so, you could, and I know I've told this story 1,000 times too, but, it all started with me seeing a little lady on Oprah Winfrey whose face was, it was dragged off. She was literally dragged on the back of a truck and her face was dragged away. And so she was very disfigured and she was just like the most peaceful, loving spirit that I had ever seen. And I just couldn't understand, like, why is she okay? Why is she okay? And so in me, like, trying to process, like, what had to go on the inside of this person for her to be okay?
Right.
Me trying to process that and asking myself the question, could I be okay if my face had been dragged off? And things that I valued about myself was that I was smart. Could I be okay if I wasn't smart? I valued that I was a nice person. Could I be okay if I wasn't a nice person? I just kept asking myself these questions over and over, and I kept saying, nope, nope, nope. And I was like pushing myself for it to be a yes. And the day that it became a yes was the first time I felt happiness in my entire life. And the way it became a yes is because that's when I realized no matter how I show up in the world, no matter how I show up, my life is purposeful, I'm connected to the source of all that is, and I'm here for a reason. And so that for me was what did it for me, and it helped me, even though I still had to practice living into that vibration, that realization was what made me go, oh, I'm not worth less. I do deserve to be here. I do deserve good things in my life. And so that just started me on a whole new projection.
It's like as kids when we was in school, we was bad kids in my school. We have someone come in and they might look like they have something clean or whatever the case may be, and they'll tell us, well, you can be whoever you want to be in this world.
Right.
And we like, yeah, that sounds good. We might be, think about that for that moment.
Right.
But we really think that's a cliche line, like, but you really can.
Right. That's
Like,
true.
you really can.
I had to, I remember when I was trying to become an entrepreneur, and at the beginning stages, I was very nervous, but something just came over me and said, you know what, you got this, you can do it. And the biggest thing I remember from that was I actually believed that I can do it. When I felt that, and that whole week I was on vacation, I was sitting back, I'm going to City Hall, getting business license, I'm just lining everything up, and it just felt so good. But after that moment, everything else that I said that I wanted in my life, I knew that I had to believe that I can have those things. And as I started believing, then it was like, okay, because a lot of times you want everything. Everybody wants a lot, you know, but the things that you want, do you really believe
That you can have.
that you can have it? So if you can't believe that you can have it, then it's gonna be a while. It's gonna take a while. For
But
you to-
it's like, how do you expect the universe to bring you something if you don't even think you
Yeah.
deserve it or can have it, or if you can't even see yourself with it?
Right.
And that's the thing too, for me, that took the pressure off of me. Like, I don't have to be the smartest. I don't have to know everything. I don't have to know anything, because if I'm connected to the source of all that exists, of the mind of the infinite, there's a million, at least a million different ways that anything can happen. So that's what allowed me for my believing to shift to, yeah, it can happen, because I'm not relying on me to make it happen. I'm relying on the
Something way
source.
bigger
Yes,
than
way bigger than
me.
me.
Way more powerful.
Exactly. And so I did want to shift a little bit from changing the story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves to changing the story that we're telling ourselves about the world. Because I know, like for me, it's particularly when I was in the space of not worthy, etc. Everything that happened out there in the world, I took it as an affront to me. So no matter what you did, you might have, I don't know, you might have skipped over me in line and went to the next person. But I'm taking it as a personal attack. Like, he saw me standing there, you know, and how you gonna skip over me and go, you know.
That was you.
Right, so, but we do that all the time. We'll put our thinking on something that's happening outside of us. And we'll use that as our interpretation. So everything, when we're looking out into the world, we're looking at it from our limited perspectives, judging it from our limited perspectives, but then we expect things to paths or avenues to open up for us.
Yeah. I remember just by you saying that, it just made me think I had a very limited mindset, just because of the fact, and going back to what you were saying, from growing up, you know, you just, you know what you know, because this is what you were taught, what you've been accustomed to. And so I was accustomed to just lack, so much lack, and I had to really understand that never was my story. I mean, it was given to me. So since that story was given to me, now I'm aware that I just knew that I could change that. I don't have to sit back and have a mindset of, dang, I wish I could have that. Dang, man, I wish my bank account was sitting real pretty right now. Why I can't? Why I can't? And so I broke away from that mindset of what I was given and what I was taught, to stepping into something that aligned with where I was trying to be at. And when I did, I was like, okay. Every now and then I have my moments as to where I sort of, you know, get back into it. But then when I do, it's like, all right, hold up, wait a minute. You know what you want. You believe you can have it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you say that on a couple of episodes, and so I just want to point out what Stephen is saying. So, like, a lot of times, well, most of the times we think that things are happening outside of us, that that thing happened, therefore I think this. So I don't have any money, therefore that's why I'm saying I'm broke. But really it's the opposite. You're saying you're broke, therefore you don't have any money. And so we get that so confused. However, a way that you can change that, for example, if you're like operating from a place of lack, you could just start looking at all the abundance that's really in your environment, all the abundance that you already have. And so, you know, do you have an abundance of friends? Do you have an abundance of love? Is there an abundance of leaves on the tree around you? Are you able to go to the faucet and get a glass of water? Everybody can't do that. Is your water clean? Everybody can't do that. Do you have lights? Everybody doesn't have lights. So, but just start thinking about all the things that are in your environment that's already there. You know, think about the grass outside. Like it's just so much of it.
And it just grows.
And it just grows. And so start putting your attention on the things that are abundant.
Right.
And then abundant, that will change your whole energy, and abundance will flow to you. So that's one of the ways. And I know Stephen oftentimes talks about how he used to be in a mentality of lack. And that's one of the things we do a lot, is that we've been in a spot and we move from it, but we don't really
Move.
no, I think you're doing a great job of moving, but what I'm saying is sometimes when, let's say if I'm at point M and you're at point A, and I'm saying it's easy to get to point M, but you're like, but how did you do it? You know, and so that's one of the ways that you can do it as it relates to abundance, is to start noticing things that are abundant around you and start putting your energy on that. And then that way you'll watch everything around you shift, and you won't anymore have to talk about your, what did you say, your bank account is
Yeah, bank account sitting on zero.
sitting on zero. You don't want to focus on that. You want to focus on the abundance that's already showing up in your life.
And thinking about going back to what you were saying, that gratitude, you know, just showing so much gratitude, because it's a lot of things that I thought I didn't have, and I just didn't realize that I had it. So that's something else I would tell anybody. Just you got everything. I mean, you think that you don't, but you really do.
Story, those are your thoughts. Your thoughts produce your feelings. Your feelings are the vibrations that pull things to you of similar vibration, of similar kind. So changing the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves, as well as changing the story that we're telling ourselves about the world, everything in the world. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
And again, change the story that you're telling yourself. You can always tell yourself about a story. Until next time, this is Arvette.
This is Steve.
Just running.
Bye-bye.